On the 10th of February, 2025, a tragedy unfolded in Daejeon, South Korea, that would send shockwaves through the country. Kim Hanul, an 8-year-old elementary school student, was found stabbed to death inside her school. What made this case even more chilling was that the alleged perpetrator was not a stranger, but one of her own teachers. The incident raised difficult questions about teacher mental health, school security, and the very safety of children within school grounds. It was an ordinary school day until it wasn't. Kim Hanul was a bright, young student attending an after-school program, which was meant to be a safe space for students after the regular school day had ended. However, when her parents were notified that their daughter had failed to arrive at her after-school tuition, a dark reality began to unfold. The teacher overseeing the program told Kim's parents that she had left the classroom, which seemed like routine at first. However, the bus driver, who was waiting for the child, quickly grew concerned as he noticed Kim had not yet arrived 10 minutes after the others had boarded. This concern turned into alarm when he reported the absence to the after-school teacher. At around 5:15 p.m., Kim's worried parents filed a missing persons report, alerting the authorities and launching a search for their daughter. As police arrived at the school, they started a search within the premises, combing through hallways and classrooms. At 5:50 p.m., Kim's grandmother, who had joined the search, made a heart-wrenching discovery. Inside the audiovisual room, she found her granddaughter lying lifeless, covered in stab wounds. The scene was made all the more horrific as another person was found with her, a female teacher in her 40s, bleeding and struggling to survive. The teacher found at the scene was Myung Jae-won, a woman in her 40s, whose actions would soon become the focal point of a nationwide investigation. Myung was rushed to the hospital, but unlike Kim, she survived. After the incident, Myung admitted to fatally stabbing Kim Hanul. The police were quick to act, and Myung was arrested as the main suspect. But what drove Myung to commit such an unthinkable act? According to initial reports, Myung had been struggling with depression for several years. She had taken a leave of absence from teaching in December 2024 due to her mental health, returning to work only a few weeks before the incident. During her time away from the school, Myung reportedly had suicidal thoughts and had exhibited violent behavior. This was not the first time her mental health was a concern. She had even put another teacher in a headlock in a previous incident. In a chilling twist, it was revealed that Myung had purchased a knife from a local store just hours before the murder. She confessed that her original plan had been to commit suicide after killing a child, choosing Kim Hanul seemingly at random. According to Myung, she lured Kim into the audiovisual room with a false promise of a book before attacking her. After Kim had been stabbed, Myung herself was injured during a struggle. The case quickly escalated from a missing persons report to a murder investigation. Police investigators, using CCTV footage, testimonies from witnesses, and Myung's own confession, pieced together the sequence of events that led to the stabbing. Autopsy results confirmed that Kim Hanul died from multiple sharp force injuries to her neck and face.
An autopsy has found that the victim, Kim Hanul, whose identity has been revealed by her family, died from multiple wounds inflicted by a sharp weapon after school on Monday. But Hanul also had marks on her hands, indicating an attempt to defend herself after the teacher lured her into the school's second-floor audio-visual room, a location that may have been deliberately chosen for its privacy. Note that there's no CCTV footage of the scene where the attack took place. We know the teacher bought the weapon used to kill Hanul on the day of the killing, which she also confessed to before undergoing surgery for her own, apparently self-inflicted wounds. But from a legal and sentencing standpoint, police need to gather evidence to demonstrate just how premeditated it was and to determine how clear her thinking was. The teacher has already claimed that she had been upset at not being able to teach on her earlier than planned return from leave on mental health grounds. She said she picked her victim at random. So, as investigators gather clues that may shed light on the teacher's state of mind, they raided her home and car with a court-issued warrant Wednesday, while digital forensic work is also underway on her cell phone. They also plan to look at her medical records and her claim to have suffered from depression since 2018, but the police have had to wait to continue questioning the teacher herself due to her recovery in the hospital, also impacting the formalities of the arrest warrant process.
On the 11th of February, 2025, just a day after the murder, Myung Jae-won confessed to the crime. However, investigators soon began to uncover further details that painted the murder as premeditated. Upon searching her personal devices, police found disturbing evidence. Myung had researched articles on murder, weaponry, and methods of committing murder-suicides in the weeks leading up to the crime. This raised further questions about how much of her mental health struggles, such as her depression, contributed to her horrific actions. Kim Ha-neul's tragic death shook not only the local community of Daejeon, but the entire nation. The case drew massive media attention and sparked a national conversation about the safety of children in schools, particularly in light of the fact that the alleged killer was a teacher, a figure of authority and care. The school where the incident occurred was closed for a week as the investigation unfolded. During that time, parents and residents of Daejeon left flowers, dolls, and sweets outside the gates in memory of Kim. One parent, a father of 2 children at the same school, expressed his anger and sorrow, stating that he couldn't understand how such a tragedy could have occurred in what should have been a safe environment. Some parents expressed fears that their children might be at risk, particularly given that the suspect had been a teacher at the school. The public outrage was palpable, and many parents called for stronger measures to ensure the safety of children, both during school hours and in after-school programs. The murder of Kim Ha-neul prompted responses from political figures, legal experts, and social welfare organizations. Acting President Choi Sang-mok offered his condolences and ordered a thorough investigation into the crime, pledging that the government would do everything possible to ensure such a tragedy would not happen again. Former President Yoon Suk-yeol also expressed his sorrow over the incident, emphasizing that schools should be places of safety for children, not sites of violence. The most prominent political response came from Education Minister Lee Joo-ho, who proposed the creation of a Kim Ha-neul law, which would focus on the mental health of teachers. The law would mandate mental health evaluations for teachers, especially those returning from long absences due to mental illness, and would require that teachers exhibiting violent tendencies be removed from classrooms to prevent similar incidents. Kim Ha-neul's parents, understandably devastated by the loss of their daughter, spoke to the media about their grief. Her father expressed regret that he had allowed Kim to attend the after-school program that day. He wished that he had made different decisions, believing that if Kim had not been enrolled in the program, she might still be alive.
Ha-neul's father has called for the strong punishment of the teacher, who's been referred to by her surname, Myung. But the police will soon decide whether to fully disclose her identity with the consent of Ha-neul's family. In the meantime, many people have been paying their respects at her funeral. Her favorite K-pop group, IVE, sent wreaths to mourn her passing. And acting President Choi Sang-mok attended the funeral Wednesday to extend his condolences. Che called on the Education Ministry and related agencies to thoroughly investigate the case and come up with necessary measures to prevent such a thing from happening again. That's what Hanul's family's been asking for, which is why they released her name and face, so we won't forget what happened to her amid efforts to avoid a repeat of this horrific tragedy. The government also said it seeks to amend a law to place teachers with mental disorders on compulsory leave. The amendment would be tentatively named.
He called for justice, urging authorities to seek the harshest punishment for the woman who had killed his daughter. He also advocated for stronger regulations to protect children from teachers who may be mentally unfit to handle the responsibilities of the job. Experts in psychiatry and criminal law weighed in on the case, with many asserting that the act of murder was likely not solely the result of depression. Pyo Chung-won, a criminal science expert, argued that Myon's violent tendencies and premeditation pointed to a deeper issue-power assertive behavior. He suggested that Myong may have chosen Kim as a vulnerable target, using the crime to assert some form of control. Several other experts disagreed that depression alone could explain the teacher's actions, asserting that depression is typically associated with self-harm rather than aggression toward others. They suggested that Myong's violent history, including the earlier altercation with a colleague, indicated a deeper psychological issue that went unaddressed before the tragedy. Kim Hanul's death is a tragedy that has sparked widespread conversations on school safety, teacher mental health, and the protection of children from potential harm. While the investigation continues, the case has already raised important questions about how society handles mental health issues in educational professionals, the mechanisms in place to protect vulnerable students, and the role of school security in ensuring that such a crime can never happen again. As the trial for Myong Jae-won approaches, many will be watching closely, hoping that justice will be served for Kim Hanul and that no other child will ever have to suffer such a fate. Her death is a painful reminder that the very institutions meant to protect and educate can sometimes harbor dangers we least expect. This case is far from over, and as the investigation and legal proceedings continue, it remains clear that Kim Hanul's life, although tragically short, will serve as a catalyst for change. For the people of Daejeon, for the people of South Korea, and for all those touched by her story, Kim Hanul's memory will live on not just in grief, but in the hope that the future will be safer for the children she left behind.